Lizzy Borden, My Midnight Things. 13 tracks for 53 minutes, including 3 bonus tracks. The 7th studio album from the US 4-piece of the same name as the vocalist. Released June 2018 by Metal Blade. Produced by Lizzy himself alongside longtime collaborator and drummer Joey Scott. 2 promo tracks have been released so far, My Midnight Things and Long May They Haunt Us. This is the band's first release in 11 years. Cool.
Yeah. That explains my first line. So I didn't know these guys were still a thing.
They are.
Look, I had to sort of hit the old Google machine and
they've been touring basically, and that's about all they've been doing. Yep.
I ended up going down a really interesting hole with reading about the murder trials from the original. It was quite, that was actually probably more interesting than the album. This one was a bit hot and cold for me. It wasn't a rehashed sort of glam album I was anticipating, but I was never a massive fan of the band. And when I sort of went to and had a listen to stuff, they were never really a glam sort of metal band. They had a glam look,
but there was
a bit more to them than that.
More vampiric sort of glam kind of a darker element to them. I mean, when you're named after an axe murderer,
you'd want a darker side of it somewhere. Heavily produced at this point, particularly with the vocals and the gang vocals that got almost Def Leppard-y for me at times.
Yeah, you're not going to like that.
Yeah, which was never really my cup of tea. Some big use of keys on a few tracks, which I actually thought was pretty cool. I thought they did that pretty well. But some of the breakdowns went really electro, and I didn't like it. Wasn't comfortable there. It's really nice guitar tone, a very 80s drum sound too. They really went for a retro kind of almost that gated snare, and it was a really sort of interesting thing. They've obviously gone for like a stadium rock kind of sound, I don't think the songs are there. And that fucking cover of Silent Night, what the actual fuck is that?
I don't know.
A Christmas fucking carol?
I know.
Awful.
I know.
Not one I'll be going back to on that one. They have it 5 out of 10. The highlights were Our Love Is God, The Scar Across My Heart, and My Midnight Things.
Oh, that was generous.
Oh, hello.
Right, now, before I get into this full-on review, what I want to do is a bit of a step back. So I remember...
Another legal letter, do you?
No, it's not.
It looks as long as one.
It's not a legal letter.
It's like Barry Hall's statement.
I just want to take a bit of a step back. So I remember back in 1989, I took a unexpected day off from school. And me and some mates ended up at Metal for Mayhem. And I remember I was speaking to Greta at the time, and I said, hey, give me what's coming that's new, a new thing that I like. So she handed me a copy of Master of Disguise, which is a fantastic Lizzy Borden album.
Okay.
The plan was, put it in a Walkman. That tape did not leave my Walkman for many, many months after. I just absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it. Went back, bought the whole back catalogue, and it was a band that I really obsessed over when I was a kid. So when I heard that Lizzy Borden was doing a new album, mate, I was happier than Meatloaf at a buffet. It was ridiculous. I
love your witticism. This is really cool. I
was wrapped that Lizzy Borden had a new album until I heard it.
Here we go.
Yes, pains me to say this, but I'm really struggling to come to terms with this one, especially with the thought that this is the same band singer that I was completely obsessed with as a teenager. The band throws every piece of metal and attitude and everything that once made them so great out the window, and they substituted it with bland and uninspired shite, as far as I'm concerned. The title track, which opens the album, shows Lizzy Borden slowly kicking out the heavy metal to make room for whatever bullshit was going through his head at the time. I think what was going in his head was some kind of mix of bloody dementia and brain damage, because judging by this track, he no longer remembers how to write a kick-ass opening tune, and he's deluded enough to think that it was a good idea to open an album with a track that sounds like Daft Punk raping Bon Jovi in 1984 for a drum machine. It was ridiculous. Sadly, that's one of the better songs on this album. Because seriously, against all odds, right? Against the laws of physics, this thing only gets worse from there. We've only very few minor glimpses of a pulse of life that brings this train wreck back on course. Tracks like Obsessed With You, Long May They Haunt Us, and The Scream Across My Heart, they sound like they were outtakes from any 2000s era Bon Jovi album with co-writes with Bono. That was
your bottom lip is even quivering while you're doing this.
I was fuming. You don't know how much I love this band, right? Oh, fucking hell. Anyway,
wow.
Pop guitar tuning, lyrics that sound like they were written by someone that regurgitated a can of alphabet soup and just wrote down whatever fuck landed in front of him. Tempo changes that make absolutely no sense. that gives this album about as much direction and name as Steady Eddie is at a fucking piss trough. The only difference is fucking Steady will hit the mark every now and then. These guys don't. However, look, in amongst this complete shower of shit, right, there are some almost semi-decent and salvageable bits, right? A Stranger to Love attempts to rescue the band's hard rock legacy. Our Love Is God is at best passable tune with heavier guitars and more aggressive drumming. The drumming's a highlight then. You know you're in deep shit when the drumming's a fucking highlight of an album.
Oh, we're going to get some angry emails on that one. Oh,
so,
wow.
So, look, this is by far the worst album in Lizzy Borden's career. It's really hard for me to pick out one thing that I really like about this record, but if pressed, I'd say Borden's vocals... Yeah. Borden's vocals still... they're still in excellent shape, so he's still got the pipes, which is a good thing. It's just a shame that he wasted his fucking voice on his abortive effort, to be honest. My favourite part of this record is the 53-minute mark, because that's when this fucking thing is over. I'll give this album 2 fuck yous out of 10. And that's only because I'm giving 1 point each for Master of Disguise and Visual Lies for when I was a kid. So, fucking Lizzy Borden, get the fuck out of here. Shit.
Fuck.
That was
Andrew.
Oh, my God.
There.
I should have let you go last. Wow. Oh, I have no idea how I'm going to follow that up. Fuck me, that's... We're on 2 for 2 at the moment with the fucking rate we're going. Now, let me give you a review from someone who's not a massive Lizzy Borden fan to begin with, so I've taken this with a fresh palate, which is going to be very different to yours. After 11 years of just touring and not recording, he actually sounds pretty good as a vocalist, and I'll pay that. It's riff-driven melodic metal to a degree, traditional stuff with some nice use of synth. Lots of vocal layering. They make this the standard aspect, but they do push the other elements aside, back. Like the vocal layering just becomes a lot. There is a darkness in the theme and the composition, but the mix is probably a little bit too top-heavy and bright because the vocal is in that upper end range, the vocal is in the top end of things, and so it doesn't really allow for any potential menace to be completely felt because it's too top heavy. There's not enough, you want some darkness and bottom end on it, and it's just not there on this record for me. It sounds good, but it just lacks that punch that it needs. The songs, in my opinion, not being a loyal fan, I thought from a newcomer's perspective they were well written and performed, just too thin, and they don't cut through properly, in my opinion. It is heavy on the production side, but there are some little things left in this to show which is a real record. Like there is some pitchiness in the vocals. They didn't go and auto-tune them, they just left them as they were, and I admire them for doing that. There is some solid writing on here too, with a fair variety in the lyrical content, which I thought was well done. There's lots of up-tempo energy on this. Now, I know it's not a metal record per se. It flirts with metal, but it's not really a metal record. But it's surprisingly energetic in a lot of ways. Some of the layering is interesting. It's odd to hear percussive touches that are actually distracting cut through louder than a piano. They got that balance wrong. I don't know. When you get... It's not the maracas. It's one of those things where you could hit it or you could scrape the stick across it. I don't know what it's fucking called, but they had one of those in there or something like that, and they were using that. And that was cutting through the mix louder than the piano was. And I was just, that doesn't make any fucking sense. That confused me. They got that balance wrong. So while it sounds fresh to a degree, the craft isn't anything new. And as such, I found myself tuning out at times during this. Nothing to do with the performances, because I think the individual performances are good. There just isn't a lot of fantastic stuff to invigorate you as you listen. It's good, but it's all been done before. There's also a tendency to overdo the hooks to the point of repetitiveness, which doesn't help either. This really does drag out songs longer than they needed to be. I understand what they were doing, but it makes the album tiring early on because you can just hear the same hook over and over again with a 3-second break for a riff to come in, and then they go back to the hook again. It's like, it's tiring. Not all the songs fall victim to that, and those that don't fall victim to it are actually standout tracks for me. And I've got to give a little bit of credit to the theme on the album, with the title being used, like the fucking thing called again. I'm still blown up. My Midnight Things. Like they reference that frequently throughout the album, which is an interesting way to keep things referenced and falling into line with each other. The reprise is another little interesting touch on that. It's a nicely crafted, more piano acoustic based version of the original opening track. overall, I can see how Lizzy taking the reins on the production side makes sense because he had a very firm vision in mind. But I think personally went too deep in what it's doing. Could have used an outside voice to help to tidy things up and make it smoother overall. It's just gone too much down the rabbit hole to be easily consumed by everyone else. It's good and well written for the most part. Sounds good, just gets too easily bored or bogged down with what hurts along the listen. And the 3 bonus tracks don't add any value, if any at all. Like, they're well done, but they're tacked onto this and they stretch the listen too far. Like, it's another reprise, a unique take on A Christmas Carol, and a remake of a 1989 song, which doesn't make any sense. There's 3 extra songs on this. It doesn't make... I don't get that. All in all, it's good. It's one to add to your collection if you're interested in it. Obviously not for Nick here. So it's one of those ones where it pops up on a random listen. You won't necessarily skip the track, but to digest it as a whole album is a bit more challenging. There's nothing terrible, but it's not quite good enough to keep you engaged. Say a 6.5 out of 10. Our Love Is God, Obsessed, Long May They Haunt Us, and The Perfect Poison were my standouts. So we've got some different opinion there. No? Okay, cool. We'll go with Nick's opinion. Check it out for yourselves and let us know what you think.